How's it going, everyone? This is Grievous Gabby with the gameplay commentary for Killzone 3, and I hope everyone made the most of the Killzone 3 double XP weekend that just occurred. I personally didn't play nearly as much as I would have liked to, but then again, if I didn't stop playing, I probably wouldn't have played as much as I would have liked to. But nonetheless, I really do hope you guys did make the most of it if you are looking to get some extra unlocks, especially for those who picked up Killzone 3 recently via the multiplayer only section available on PSN. But nonetheless, I'm today going to talk about Killzone Mercenary, which is the Killzone Vita title that was recently announced that is being developed once again by Guerrilla Games, which was a huge surprise. I can talk about that again, but I won't, it's in my prior video. And I'm going to do some questions and answers, or some answers to questions I had relating to that video. And the first one was, will this take place after Killzone 3? Now there's going to be spoilers here obviously, so just be warned. If you don't want to be spoiled, stop watching the video. But here it goes. Killzone 3 ended with Helgun essentially being destroyed. There is a brief video after that, whereby you see some survivors in hazmat suits and someone's arrived in a capsule. So it's unlikely that there's going to be a follow-up to Killzone 3 as a spin-off in Killzone Mercenary. That is incredibly unlikely, in fact. Why? Because Helgun is destroyed. Their nation is no more as far as we know it, unless they have another colony somewhere. But I wouldn't expect such a big reveal to occur on a Vita title. That's just not going to happen. Plus, it wouldn't really fit in with the mercenary theme. What I think it's going to take place in is possibly before Killzone 1 even, whereby you're actually infiltrating the Vector government, or Vector military force, or both possibly, and thus being able to bypass the defenses, and that's how the Helghast originally invaded Vector, which isn't Earth. That's where Sev, for example, is from. They're from Vector, not from Earth. Earth is the main planet, Vector is another colony like Helgun, and the Helghast in Killzone 1 invade Vector. And they do so, and they're so successful in doing so at first because the defenses that they have, that the Vectans have, are turned off as they attack. So they're able to just take their fleet and pass the Vectan fleet and basically initially decimate the colony. This would be something that I think would fit within the theme and the actual story of being a mercenary, more so than an actual continuation on from Killzone 3. Once again, though, it does come down to the fact that it's a really big reveal to put into what is essentially a spin-off game, and I just don't see that happening. So I personally would like to see the universe as it is, more fleshed out, and wait for that big reveal for Killzone 4, or leave that big reveal for Killzone 4. Now, the other question was, well, there are several questions, but the other question I'm addressing at the moment is, what do you think is needed to take Killzone to the next level? Now, this question itself is hard to answer straight away. It depends what you mean by the next level, of course. Now, let's assume you mean by sales. So if you want to increase Killzone 4 sales, the number one thing I would be doing as a developer is I'd be making it more casual. Arguably partially what they did with Killzone 3 when compared to Killzone 2. Make it more accessible to a larger audience. And to do this, the first thing I would do is I would add a lot of auto-aim, like other titles do, or most first-person shooter titles do on consoles. Now, this is something I desperately do not want them to do, because it would take away a lot of what makes Killzone so unique. And personally, I have done a video on the controls of Killzone 2 and 3, but I like both. But one thing I didn't mention was one thing I love about both control setups is there is no auto-aim. Now, Killzone 3 does have an aim assist function, but that's not the same as auto-aim. Aim assist is whereby it helps you aim down your sights at the person, but it doesn't start tracking the player by itself, which is something that, once again, most first-person shooter games on consoles do in fact do, and it's one of the reasons I think people actually struggle with Killzone controls more so than what they actually believe they're struggling with. It's because the game isn't playing itself for you. You actually have to play the game. So there's that side. Now, if you're talking about taking Killzone to the next level in terms of gameplay, I think what you really have to do is you have to appeal to the core fan base, and the problem with this is it's in direct conflict with actually increasing sales. So what I would do to take it to the next level in terms of gameplay is I'd be making it less noob friendly, and I would be making it much more quote-unquote hardcore. That is, I'd be making it much more designed around the core fan base, those who loved Killzone 2 and to some extent loved or liked Killzone 3, although there has been a huge number of people who were really big Killzone 2 fans who were incredibly let down by Killzone 3. Now, I personally fall in between. I don't think Killzone 3 lived up to the expectations I had as a result of Killzone 2, but it still was far from a bad game. In fact, it was a fantastic game and one of the best games of 2011 in my eyes, but it was overall a letdown when compared to Killzone 2. This, however, might not be a popular opinion, I'm not sure. It's probably not a popular opinion amongst the average gamer though, which means appealing to the target demographic, or the small target demographic, or relatively small target demographic, that is the Killzone 2 fanbase, might not be what takes it to the next level in terms of sales, but for me, that's what's going to take it forward and actually make it a better game in terms of gameplay. Which is kind of problematic given that the Killzone games are such expensive games to make. For those who don't know, Killzone 2 is amongst the most expensive games ever made. It cost about $50 million apparently, or from what we're told, which would put it about number 5 in most expensive games ever to make. So sales are very important for this series. If it doesn't get good sales, the sheer cost alone will mean that the sequel will not occur anytime soon, essentially, if ever. So ultimately, I'm not sure how I can answer that, what is needed to take it to the next level. It depends what you want. If you want more sales, make it more casual, and probably alienate a large amount of the current fan base. If you want to make it a better game in terms of gameplay, I personally think, or in my eyes, I would appease the Killzone 2 fan base more and make it a much more team-based game with much longer lasting games than Warzone, even in Killzone 3, which are relatively long matches. In Warzone, for example, 20-25 minutes, that's still nothing compared to the 50-minute matches I remember playing in Killzone 2. That is especially the case, of course, because there was custom matches in Killzone 2, which is something I definitely think needs to be brought back to Killzone 4 if they are going to take the series to quote-unquote the next level in terms of gameplay. Although once again, this is something that the vast majority of casual players may not want. They might not want the struggle of actually finding their own game, and even though there is a quick search function in Killzone 2, it might be a little daunting to them, and they might not realise that and thus be put off it before they've really given it a chance. And what ultimately is required to take Killzone to the next level depends on your opinion of what the next level is. Is it more sales, or is it better gameplay? And that's once again even more subjective, because some people did prefer Killzone 3 to Killzone 2. I'm not one of those people, unfortunately, although I very much so do like Killzone 3, and I've probably spent as much time in Killzone 3 as I have in Killzone 2, largely because I knew more people who played Killzone 3 on launch and have continued to play it. Anyway, this is Grievous Gabby. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I will try and get some more videos up in the near future and not have such a large spell. I have had some PC problems, which is why this video was so delayed. I also apologise if there's some background sound in the microphone. I have done my best to not have any, but for some reason my microphone, which is the Blue Snowball mic, which is a fantastic microphone up until now at least, has been having a bit of issues recently, whereby the system starts detecting it and undetecting it as I record, and also the number one way to record, which is the volume 1 option, or recording 1 option, just sometimes is picking up static, which could be something to do with my computer, which is once again having issues. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, give it a like and maybe a subscribe if you've really enjoyed it. Feel free to leave any questions, I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Once again, with the PC issues, it might be a bit longer than I would like, but I apologise for that in advance. Anyway, this is Grievous Gabby. I do hope you've enjoyed, and I do hope to see you next time.